The tickets arrived in a sleek, embossed envelope, a golden gleam against the mundane mail stacked on my hallway table. Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois, not just a fight, but the fight. A spectacle of power and precision, a dream for my son, Arthur. He breathed boxing, even at 40. Every conversation, every strained family gathering over lukewarm tea and stale biscuits, somehow circled back to Usyk. Mom, he'd sigh dramatically, leaning back in his chair, eyes wide with a boyish longing that always tugged at my heartstrings. If only I could see him live, just once. The atmosphere, the raw power, it's a different world. His words, soaked in an almost childlike yearning, had burrowed deep into my heart, settling beside the ache of loneliness that had grown since Harold's passing. My late husband, Harold, a man who saw life itself through the lens of a boxing match, strategy, endurance, the unexpected knockout, would have cherished this. This wasn't merely a gift, it was a bridge to a shared past, a phantom limb of connection in my widowed life, a way to make Arthur proud of his old mother. I was 78, my joints a symphony of aches and creaks, each step a hesitant waltz with gravity. Yet, the vivid vision of Arthur's face, illuminated by pure, unadulterated joy, pushed away every tremor of doubt, every whisper of fatigue. I carefully, almost ritualistically, cashed in a small, rarely touched bond from my younger days, a minuscule nest egg I'd kept hidden from even Harold, reserved for something truly extraordinary, something that spoke to the soul, not just the wallet. This was it. This was extraordinary. I called Arthur, my voice a barely contained tremor of excitement, the words bubbling like champagne. Guess what, darling? I've got a surprise for you. Something incredible, something you've always dreamed of. He sounded distant, hurried, a dismissive drone against my bubbling enthusiasm. Mom, seriously, I can't talk right now. Big meeting, really important stuff. You know, high stakes. Can it wait? It sounds like you're about to give me $1 million or something. I pressed on, my heart refusing to be silenced, ignoring the thinly veiled sarcasm. It's for the Usyk-Dubois fight. At Wembley. 2 tickets. Front row. Can you believe it? You and whoever you want to take. A beat of silence, longer than it should have been, stretched between us, thick with unsaid things. It wasn't the silence of surprise, but of calculation. Then, a forced cheerfulness, thin as tissue paper, materialized in his voice. Mom, wow. Seriously? You really shouldn't have gone to all that trouble. You know how insane my schedule is, flying here, flying there. But wow, thank you. I'll call you right back, promise. Gotta run. Boss is calling. The line went dead, leaving me holding a receiver that felt suddenly cold, heavy, an inert weight against my ear. He promised to call back, to pick them up, to discuss details. He never did. The tickets sat on my mantelpiece, pristine and promising, silent, accusing witnesses to his empty words. I told myself he was busy. So important. My son. Days later, the universe, with its cruel, twisted sense of irony, delivered the first gut punch, not with a bang, but with the innocent glee of a grandchild. I saw Chloe, my vibrant granddaughter, at the grocery store, her face alight with an almost manic glee, bouncing on the balls of her feet. She was always so sweet, so outwardly attuned to my quiet world, unlike her father. Granny, you won't believe it, she bubbled, her voice cutting through the mundane hum of fluorescent lights. Dad's absolutely buzzing. He and Aunt Sarah are flying to London for the Usyk-Dubois fight at Wembley. He even posted about it online, bragging about getting some super last-minute tickets from a lucky reseller. Can you believe his luck, Granny? He said it was fate. My shopping cart, laden with ordinary milk and bread, screeched to a halt, scattering a few apples onto the polished floor. Aunt Sarah? Arthur's younger sister, a phantom in our faded family album, a woman who had barely acknowledged my existence, let alone spoken a civil word to me, since Harold's funeral 5 years ago. A cold dread, a sickening premonition, seeped into my very bones, chilling me to the core, more painful than any arthritic ache. He's going with Sarah? I managed, my voice a frail, barely audible whisper, lost in the cavern of my sudden despair, a tremor running through my entire body. Chloe, oblivious, her eyes still sparkling with excitement, looked genuinely confused. "Yeah," he said he got them from some resale site. Said it was a real steal of a deal. "Why, Granny? Is something wrong? You look pale." I mumbled an excuse, paid for my groceries in a daze, and hurried home, the plastic bags digging into my trembling hands, the simple weight of them feeling like stones. My mind was a chaotic storm of betrayal, a whirlwind of disbelief and agonizing certainty. I barely remembered putting away the milk, the bread, the silent accusations of my kitchen. All I could see was Arthur's face when I'd told him about the tickets, his forced, paper-thin enthusiasm, a mask now brutally torn away. My own son. He'd sold the tickets. My gift. My sacrifice. The last whispers of a dream I'd held for him, transformed into cold, hard cash in his greedy palm. And he was taking his estranged sister, publicly parading a betrayal that cut deeper than any financial loss, deeper than any physical ache I had ever known. What kind of son does that? What kind of heart could so casually discard a mother's love, turning a sacred, heartfelt gift into a mere commodity, a transaction for his own fleeting pleasure? Does love blind you so much that you don't see the true, grotesque nature of your own child, even when it stares back at you from a polished screen, broadcasting their ill-gotten joy? The following week passed in a blur of quiet, simmering fury. A fire, cold and controlled, began to ignite deep within me. I didn't confront Arthur. Not yet. The urge was a searing inferno in my belly, a desperate need to scream, to lash out, but a colder, more calculated flame had begun to flicker in its place, a strategy forming in the depths of my wounded soul. I meticulously watched his social media, a self-inflicted torment, a grim exercise in confirmation. Photos of him and Sarah at Wembley, bathed in the euphoric glow of Usyk's victory, their smiles wide, their gestures expansive, clinking glasses, celebrating as if they were royalty, kings and queens of their self-made empire. Each picture, each shared moment of their unbridled joy, was a fresh, agonizing stab to my already bleeding heart. They were living large, having the time of their lives, on my dime, thanks to my unyielding heart, all while I sat alone in my too-quiet house, nursing a betrayal sharper than any physical pain I had ever known. My indignation, a slow-burning ember, hardened into an unshakable, diamond-hard resolve. He thought I was just an old woman, easily dismissed, a relic to be dusted off when convenient, then tucked away. He thought he could outsmart me, outwit my love, manipulate my generosity. He thought wrong. My mind, though older, was sharper than he remembered, forged in the fires of survival and loss, sharpened by decades of quiet observation. And now, in the crucible of his callous deceit, it was becoming something altogether more dangerous, a weapon he would never see coming. I remembered a casual, almost forgotten conversation with Geraldine Marsh, my lawyer. After Harold passed, in the chaotic aftermath of grief and mountains of paperwork, she'd gently, patiently, advised me to consolidate all my assets, put everything unequivocally in my name, and simplify things for my waning years. What Arthur, and indeed most of my family, didn't know was that Geraldine, with her quiet efficiency and unwavering loyalty, had also helped me establish a separate, entirely independent trust years ago. It was funded by a small, unexpected inheritance from a distant, almost forgotten relative, a great-aunt Harold himself had barely known, a reclusive spinster who left me a surprising sum. This money was completely off Arthur's radar, a phantom fund that didn't appear in any of our shared discussions of finances, a ghost in my ledger. It was a failsafe, an emergency escape route, a just-in-case fund I'd never imagined I'd use, certainly not against my own flesh and blood. But now, just in case had become now. My fingers, arthritic but surprisingly steady, found Geraldine's number in my worn leather address book, a beacon in the storm. "Geraldine, darling," I began, my voice calm, almost serene, betraying nothing of the inferno raging within. "It's Celeste. I need to make some rather specific adjustments. Very important adjustments. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? First thing. A seed of something potent had been planted, and now, fueled by rage and resolve, it was ready to blossom into a formidable tree of reckoning. The following month, Arthur called. His voice, usually tinged with a subtle, dismissive condescension, now boomed with an almost unnatural cheerfulness, a forced bonhomie that grated on my nerves like sandpaper. Mom, just got back from London. Incredible fight. Usyk's a legend. You should have seen it. Listen, just checking in. Everything okay with you? Anything I can do? His words, light and airy, carried a false concern, a transparent attempt to smooth over what he assumed was a minor transgression. My voice, by contrast, was calm, almost sugary, laced with a sweetness that should have warned him, a subtle hint of venom beneath the honey. Oh, Arthur, darling, everything is just peachy. In fact, I have a little something for you. A package should arrive tomorrow. Consider it a late celebration for your grand trip. He chuckled, a sound full of self-satisfaction, of a man who believed he had outmaneuvered everyone. Another surprise, Mom? You really do spoil me rotten. What could it be this time? A new scarf? He had no idea. He thought he'd gotten away with it, his petty betrayal neatly buried under layers of indifference and a casual disregard for his mother's feelings. He was about to learn that some graves refused to stay dug, and some debts refused to remain unpaid. The package arrived, not with a fanfare, but with a quiet, devastating finality. It was addressed to his office, a discreet brown envelope. Inside, nestled among layers of protective tissue paper, lay a single, neatly folded document, stark white against the dark wood of his polished desk, a formal, meticulously drafted notice of intent to irrevocably dissolve the sprawling family trust. The very same trust that had, for years, silently funded his lucrative business ventures, his children's exorbitant private schooling, and his own ostentatious, opulent lifestyle. A trust that, unbeknownst to him, was largely comprised of funds from that very secret asset I'd mentioned to Geraldine, the one he knew nothing about, the one he thought was too insignificant to matter. The document, cold and legalistic, outlined the immediate and absolute cessation of all direct and indirect financial support. There was also a short, simple, typewritten note from me, tucked neatly beneath the legal jargon, its words piercing him like daggers. Just 3 words, sharp as shards of glass, a final, cutting remark: "Enjoy the fight, dear." A direct, undeniable confirmation that I knew everything. Arthur's subsequent call was a strangled, incoherent choke. Mom, what is this? What have you done? His voice cracked, a horrifying symphony of panic and disbelief, rising to a desperate crescendo. He sounded like a cornered animal. I listened, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips, a ghost of satisfaction. Just balancing the books, darling, I replied, my voice calm, almost clinically detached, devoid of any warmth. You taught me well. Every action, even seemingly small ones like selling a gift, has a consequence. You took from my hand, so I took from yours. A simple transaction, wouldn't you agree? He railed, he pleaded, he threatened, his words escalating into a desperate, pathetic symphony of self-pity and thinly veiled rage. You can't do this. This is insane. You're ruining us. He even brought Charlotte, his usually composed and calculating wife, to the phone. Her voice, usually so clipped and precise, was now a tearful, desperate wail, utterly broken. Celeste, please. You can't. We'll lose everything. The house, the kids' school. Our entire life is built on this. What about the children? I listened, unmoving, unmoved, my heart a stone. It seems, I said, my voice unwavering, devoid of any discernible emotion, that your priorities were elsewhere. Perhaps on a boxing match you so eagerly paid for with someone else's generosity. My generosity. And Eleanor's generosity, which you also so casually pocketed. Don't worry, the children will adapt. They always do. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with a truth they could no longer deny, a truth that shattered their carefully constructed reality. The fallout was swift, brutal, and utterly devastating for them. Without the constant, silent injection of funds from the dissolved trust, Arthur's business, built on a foundation of borrowed prosperity and flimsy loans, faltered, then spectacularly imploded, collapsing like a house of cards. Charlotte, her carefully constructed world crumbling into dust, had no choice but to pull the children from their elite, exclusive school, throwing their meticulously planned future into disarray and forcing them into public education for the first time. Their grand, ostentatious house, which I had once, in my misguided love, helped them buy and maintain, became a suffocating burden without constant injections of my now reclaimed cash. The opulent facade cracked, then shattered, revealing the desperate, struggling couple beneath. They started fighting viciously, publicly, their arguments spilling out into the streets, the cracks in their perfect life becoming gaping chasms for all to see. People in town, ever observant and eager for gossip, started whispering, then openly talking. Reverend Jonah, bless his well-meaning heart, even approached Arthur in church, his brow furrowed with genuine concern, inquiring about the sudden and unfortunate change in fortunes, the rumors of bankruptcy. The truth, unvarnished and brutal, began to spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community, consuming their carefully curated reputation, leaving nothing but ashes. I didn't gloat. I didn't send nasty letters, nor did I revel in their public humiliation. I simply lived my life, a serene witness to their self-destruction, watching from a distance as the consequences of their actions unfolded. Eleanor, my dear Eleanor, whose own generosity had been so cruelly abused by Arthur, came to visit more often, her presence a balm to my soul, a quiet affirmation of loyalty. We'd sit on my newly acquired porch, a cozy, sun-drenched space in a quaint new cottage I'd purchased with funds from the secret asset Arthur never knew about, the one Geraldine helped me with, a home far from their crumbling empire, sipping iced tea, talking about everything and nothing, but never, ever about Arthur, who had become a painful, distant memory. I quietly, discreetly, without telling anyone, helped Chloe find a scholarship for a good public college, and even offered some financial support for her living expenses. She deserved a chance untainted by her father's insatiable greed, a chance to build a life on honesty, not deceit. She was my second chance. Sometimes Arthur, his usually polished car now conspicuously older, dirtier, and dented, would drive slowly past my new cottage, his face grim, etched with a raw, agonizing despair. His eyes would dart towards my windows, haunted, desperate, as if trying to gauge the depth of the wound I had inflicted upon him, to understand the woman he had underestimated. But I felt nothing in return. No burning hatred, no vengeful desire to inflict reciprocal pain. Only a quiet, profound peace. The bitterness that had once consumed me had faded, replaced by the serene clarity of a painful but essential lesson learned. It wasn't about the money anymore, or even the tickets to a boxing match. It was about respect. About the sacred, unspoken trust between a mother and her son. And about reclaiming my dignity, not with a furious outburst, but with a silent, calculated knockout that reverberated through every aspect of their lives. Can love truly survive when trust is the first and most devastating casualty? And what happens when the sweetest revenge is simply living a life free from the crushing weight of betrayal, leaving others with absolutely nothing but the bitter taste of their own greed? My new life found a serene, unwavering rhythm, a quiet triumph that was all my own. I finally understood that true peace wasn't found in avoiding conflict, but in facing injustice head-on, with a strength they never anticipated, a strength forged in the fire of their own deceit. And as I watched the sunset from my new porch, I knew that some battles are won not in the ring, but in the quiet, unyielding power of a broken heart finally finding its peace.